Wanna find great? Follow me. New listings. Whatever you're looking for, you'll find it on Yep. Yep has a range of great traders and suppliers. Those are our artists. Let me take you to the painters. There you go. All local, all vetted, and all-star rated. Find great on yep.co.za.
Now we will have a discussion led by Paul Plant on how leading social media channels are helping small businesses to adapt to the new normal of customer engagement. This session features Brian Abel of @Dynamo, who are Twitter's exclusive agent in Africa, and Ayanda Mbata of Turn Left Media, which similarly represents LinkedIn on the African continent. Over to you, Paul.
Welcome to our next session. Coronavirus pandemic is going to go down in history as probably the first major global crisis of what I will describe as the social media era. We live in a world where social media influences pretty much every aspect of our lives, both at home and at work. So during this session, we're going to hear from agency representatives of two of the most popular social platforms on the planet, Twitter and LinkedIn, talking specifically about how businesses are increasingly turning to social platforms to communicate with their customers and to operate their businesses. My guests in this session are Brian Abel from @Dynamo, one of Africa's largest social media agencies. Brian oversees @Dynamo's Twitter operations in West Africa. From LinkedIn, we have Ayanda Mbata of Turn Left Media in Johannesburg. She describes herself as a brand builder on LinkedIn. I'm going to begin with you, Brian. You sent me a lot of literature to prepare for this session, which I found absolutely fascinating reading. And we'll try and find a way to publish some of that on our website. Please tell me what trends you are seeing in terms of business adoption of Twitter and other social channels driven as a direct result of the COVID pandemic.
Well, thank you very much, Paul, for having me. I think it's been quite an interesting period with the pandemic. And I think as a starter, I think for us, where we start with is, Twitter is a platform that's made by the audience really, and not by us as a platform. It's where you find your most receptive audience, really. And with that in mind, one of the things we've been able to see is there's been an increase or influx in the number of people consuming content on the platform. Our largest ever growth in terms of monetizable daily active users, up 34% as of Q2 2020. So there's been that growth over the time, and it's been quite interesting to be able to see the opportunities available for brands to be able to reach their customers. So, with small businesses, for example, there's a huge opportunity for them to be able to reach these new audiences that are coming over to the platform for them to consume a lot of content. It's interesting to be able to see how you can be able now to take advantage of that with partners like us on the ground who can be able to help you reach your audiences.
And are you seeing any particular spikes in different regions in terms of where, I know from some of our own BigFive research that we did back when we founded, that we saw that the Middle East and particularly Saudi Arabia has extremely high Twitter use. I mean, are you, in terms of COVID, are you seeing the trends fairly uniform across Africa, or are you seeing some regions outperforming others?
Definitely some regions have outperformed others. So for example, Nigeria has seen a huge influx of numbers compared to some of the key markets, Kenya and South Africa. Kenya comes second after that. There's also been a huge influx in Ghana, which is starting to grow over time. And people just really want to be able to get onto the platform to get news because as Twitter is where news breaks. It's the news platform where people are with that open, receptive mindset. They're coming over to the platform to consume content. So there has been that influx of numbers, and for us, it's more of what next. Now that we have all these people coming onto the platform to consume a lot of content.
Well, I'm going to come and talk on about what next in a moment, but first, let me turn to you, Ayanda. Well, I'm going to come and talk on about what next in a moment, but first, let me turn to you, Ayanda. I noticed that during the lockdown period, LinkedIn has taken this time to launch LinkedIn for Small Business. Can you just elaborate a bit further on the thought process behind LinkedIn for Small Business and, particularly how it works and what the aims are?
Paul, also thank you very much for having me here today. I think the biggest thinking behind LinkedIn for small businesses was to really help small businesses break through the clutter. As you would imagine, I mean, if you are an established business on LinkedIn, you have members and customers who are very familiar to who you are, what your business offering is. And the biggest challenge for small business owners especially was, to break through that clutter, to familiarize themselves with, customers or the members and audiences that matter to them. And LinkedIn obviously saw that this was an opportunity to really find, resources, tools, as well as tools rather, to help these small businesses, just to inform them and equip them on what their audiences are doing on LinkedIn, what the behavior is like, and how they can really best maybe build this community within the platform, just to help them connect with the right customers, connect with right-minded individuals, and more so just to network and collaborate as well. That's generally why they've decided to go with LinkedIn for small businesses.
I'm going to come to you both on the same topic now. From my own experience in digital media over a number of years now, we've seen millions of companies around the world now represented on Facebook. Many small business studies, you see that more small businesses today use Facebook than Google for local marketing. But given the recent trends that you've seen, if you were offering advice to any small business owner or someone wanting to promote a commercial enterprise these days using social, where would your advice start? Let me begin with you, Brian.
I think the first thing is to be able to get the assurance that the audience is there. Really, the audience is there; it's waiting for you. And as we say at Twitter, start with them because the audience is there. There has been a huge decrease in terms of costs associated with advertising on the platform, ranging in between 35 to about 75% for some of our products. So the cost has really gone down. From a support perspective, we're here on the ground to be able to assist brands to be able to do that. And when you're looking at where to start, really, I think the biggest thing is to be able to take the time to understand what the audience is doing on the platform, and know that the audience is there, yes. And Brian is on Twitter and is on another platform and another platform. But you need to understand that all these platforms bring something different. Brian is a different person in all these platforms. He has a different mindset. So how do I ensure that my content fits that? I think that's one of the biggest things to be able to think about, and also, at the end of the day, really understand what do I want to derive out of it. So don't just go in shooting in the dark. What are my KPIs and what's my plan to achieve those KPIs? And then now come in and see where can I get the support to be able to understand all these things. So there's a flurry of things you can be able to assist, and also from a Dynamo perspective where we sit, we are here to be able to empower businesses across the whole of Africa and create an impact for them, and that's where we exist on this.
And from a LinkedIn perspective, what's the LinkedIn advice for small business setting out with a social media strategy?
Yeah, I think very similar to what Brian has actually mentioned. It's really around the mindset of individuals on different social media platforms. And I mean, for one, if I had to talk about the LinkedIn member, it's a very distinctive type of behavior where people are very mindful of how they behave on the platform. Of course, this is a very professional environment. So they come onto the news because they're looking to consume industry news. They're wanting to keep up to date with current affairs. They're wanting to connect with like-minded individuals. And some also come onto the platform just merely to follow individuals, such as influencers and experts within their line of business. I think if you start thinking about, especially for LinkedIn, the mission is to really connect the world's professionals to make them more productive and successful. So if I were to challenge a small business right now, it's more so around how do you equip your members, your customers, and your audience to make them more productive and successful? Because that's essentially what they're coming onto the platform for. They're coming onto LinkedIn to upskill themselves, to grow themselves as individuals, to connect with peers as well. So if you're a business and a brand, how do you then give them something that will make them more productive and successful, essentially? And of course, we've seen really great trends around video working incredibly well, but also really listening to understand your audience is very important. And that's where the data and the insights from LinkedIn come from, where, we're able to share various reports with you around, really understanding and make them more productive and successful, essentially. And of course, we've seen really great trends around video working incredibly well, but also really listening to understand your audience is very important. And that's where the data and the insights from LinkedIn come from, where, we're able to share various reports with you around, really understanding and, taking a deep delve into your audience based on how they behave on the platform, what, content they're consuming, what insights are trending, as well as topics as well. So, I mean, for me, just like what Brian said, understanding and listening to your audience is very important.
I detected from reading the literature you sent me, Brian, there's a real attraction in social media to share knowledge and understanding with like-minded individuals and companies. That kind of kindred spirit of all in it together and sharing, and following people who are like you and vice versa, and so forth. So, in light of what we've seen with COVID, where do we think social is evolving? And I'm sure you get asked this question a lot, but how do you continually evolve a channel where an awful lot of what goes across it, is driven by the people using it themselves, as opposed to the companies like you?
Yeah, I think, I mean, pleasure, I can go fast.
Well, you gave me the data, so.
Yeah, I think there's quite a lot that has been happening, and from a platform perspective, we're sitting down and trying to understand what does the audience want, even us, because as I've mentioned, for us the biggest thing is the people on the platform, and it's the people who make the platform what it is at the end of the day. We've seen things like branded likes coming up, where when you like a tweet, it has an animation. We've seen that do amazingly over this time. It's something that we're testing, and who knows, soon might be on general access. I think also, just tying into that, there are three key things that from my perspective, I would like to say, where social is going towards, and the first being, the changing consumer behavior and the consumer changing all the time, and for them, wanting to be able to listen, to be talked, to have a conversation with the brand and not the brand to talk at them. And that's one of the things that small businesses can take advantage of, having a conversation with their audience. Because again, as you know, majority of this audience is quite young. And speaking as a millennial, I'm going to say, we want brands to talk to us, not talk at us.
Would you agree that that's probably the greatest advantage of Twitter, where a brand can speak en masse to,
exactly,
to a lot of people at once with a consistent message?
Exactly, yes, and we've seen it work across the world, where small businesses start up, and a simple conversation that starts somewhere in the world, and a brand jumps onto it, and it keeps on going and going and going and going, and that really is the purpose of the platform. As I was saying, second, for me, I think one of the biggest things also is the brands knowing that the audience is there to support them. So for example, we've seen an influx in conversations around support small businesses, more so during this COVID time, that have grown over 125% across some of the key markets: Kenya, South Africa, Nigeria, and Ghana. Finally, personalization. I think it's something people keep talking about, personalization. But what is personalization? How can you ensure that as much as it's easy for me to get onto your website and order a product, it's also easy for me to get that product? Because we forget that we are using technology and all this data to be able to make life easier for our customers, but we forget the end interaction at the end of the day, which is, again, it's quite key.
And similarly, Ayanda, how do you see LinkedIn evolving as we emerge out of lockdown?
So Brian actually stole one of my points. And it's spot on. It's really around, for me, personalization, humanization, and more so around collaboration. And that's where I see how obviously we can evolve as a platform, really, bringing internally rather from the business, using our own employees as advocates of the business, using our executive leadership, to start really pushing out strong thought leadership pieces that can, talk about the businesses, letting people people in on what's happening inside of the business, giving us a sneak preview of, what you plan, to do ahead in the future. And how I've seen LinkedIn really kind of support members and companies in that regard is, with the features that they're rolling out recently. On the 23rd of October, they just recently rolled out LinkedIn Stories in the African market, which I think is going to be really incredible in terms of being able to talk to your members and to your audiences in real time. We also have LinkedIn live streaming and LinkedIn live events, which, has had a very, very high uptake over the last couple of months during lockdown here in South Africa and globally as well. And obviously it just gives people the opportunity to be able to talk to brands and to businesses in real time as well. So it all goes back to, personalization, really humanizing the brand and, thinking and looking at the brand as a human. And I think if you've got that recipe, then it should be a winning one, in the near future as things evolve on social. And then also just really understanding the member journey too. Another thing that LinkedIn has recently launched is what we call conversation ads. And that's basically personalizing the member experience to give them the solutions that matter to them, which essentially I believe is the most important thing right now. You want to give members and customers what they're looking to get out of the platform and from businesses and organizations as well. So yeah, those are my three things: personalization, humanization, and collaboration. That's what I see in the future.
Fantastic. I could carry on this conversation for another half an hour easily, but and we're coming close to our allotted time. We've got a couple of minutes left, so I just want to ask you a couple of personal-ish questions. What you've learned during lockdown, what sort of personal insight has sort of jumped out at you in terms of what learning experience you've had from coronavirus and everything that's gone around. Secondly, I'd just like you to finish by saying, what are you most looking forward to as we emerge once lockdown is over? You're looking forward to traveling again, going out for a few beers or whatever. But so what have you learned and what are you most looking forward to as we come out? Let me start with you, Brian.
I think this whole experience, with COVID has been a learning experience, but one of the most interesting things for me has been, just the aspect of behavioral science. I'm a huge sucker for data and seeing how various countries have been able to use data and the aspect of how human beings behave to inform how the curve is flattened and stuff like that. It's been quite interesting to watch that. And it's going to be interesting to see how then brands actually use that to be able to inform how their products go to market. Because again, the data is there, but how are we using it? And as you know, there's a huge problem with data here in Africa. But there's that opportunity really to relook and see what can we be able to do. Looking outside, after this pandemic, I think one of the biggest things for me is traveling. I love traveling. I'm always in Lagos every 6 weeks. And I can't wait to go back to my Lagosians, my people back in Nigeria, to be able to see how they're doing.
Well, maybe we'll enlist your help when we have our first BigFive event in either Ghana or Nigeria, which we're hoping to do once all this craziness is over. So Ayanda, tell us what have you learned over the last six to 9 months, and what are you most looking forward to next year?
What I've learned over the last 6 to 9 months is really around how people can really show up for one another. And I've seen the support be incredible, especially, we talk about small businesses, but, I've seen some colleagues, some friends and family who would rather not buy fruits and vegetables from a mass mart and rather support, a friend who's just started a small business, which I found that to be, incredible and so beautiful. Again, it goes back to that, just being in it together. It really spoke its truth in the last 6 to 9 months, where people really brought out the human element in them. And you really saw that, we actually do live in a society where people can still show up for each other and be there for one another during these trying times. So that was beautiful to learn for me and see just that element of people come out. And what I'm most looking forward to, also definitely traveling. I've been desperate to just, get out, go to the beach, go to the bush. I've got many a long list. This was my year to travel. So unfortunately, a lot of my trips were cancelled. So definitely going out and about to see all the beautiful places after this.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I think you both touched on it. Humans are incredibly resilient things, and I think we've seen some fantastic things come out over this past 9 months. And of course, many of them socialized and made public through the beauty of social media. So we should all pay a big debt of thanks to both your mediums. I'd really like to say thank you to both of you for your time today. I can't wait until we can get back doing in-person events again to BigFive Summit next time we have it back down in Cape Town. It will be an absolute privilege to invite you both to come along and speak again and meet you in person. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having us, Paul.
Thank you.
Such a good pleasure.
Much appreciated. Cheers.